Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, the world's most exciting podcast, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, New York Times best-selling author and National Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Michael Savage.
Welcome to the free version of the Michael Savage podcast, and I'm going to keep it free for all of you. But there are many of you who would love to be able to listen to my show without any ads. I love ads, but many of you want to listen to the podcast free of ads. So we created something for you, a solution. We call it the Savage Premium. For less than the price of one flat, tasteless beer at your local bar, you can receive access to all of my podcasts going back years, ad-free for just $3.99. That's it, $3.99 a month. You'll get not only my ad-free podcast, but you will also occasionally receive access to material that is exclusive for members only, and I'm going to give you the list in a minute of what you've missed. You're going to get an occasional monologue from me, maybe a reading from one of my novels, sneak peeks of interviews before anyone else hears them, archive pieces dating back to 1994. Many things that come up, you're going to get exclusive access to Michael Savage material. Details can be seen on my website, michaelsavage.com, and if you want to join, all you got to do is go to glow.fm and search Savage Premium. That's glow.fm and search Savage Premium. Now, you will always have access to my free weekly podcast. I want to be clear about that. That's my promise to you. But if you want less ads and more Savage, join the Savage Premium Club today and never miss a spoken word of mine. It's glow.fm/Savage Premium. You can find it on michaelsavage.com. And here's some of the stuff that you have missed so far. Michael Savage reading from his best-selling novel, Countdown to Mecca. My words, my voice. Savage reads from one of his lost journals, Fiji, 1968. Savage's first drive time show, Hour One. My interview with the Jewish gangster, very popular. I read from my first written, published article, Who Was at the Helm, from 1965. It's heard nowhere but on my premium site. I read passages from my novel, Abuse of Power. We replayed Fat Al's Tuna. My Savage show from 3/24/94, the earliest show in the archive, 3/24/94. My interview with Donald Trump from 1/10/2011. 1/10/2011, while Mark Levin was mocking him and Sean Hannity was mocking him and the others were mocking him, I was interviewing Trump. Much more. And remember, subscribers also get ad-free podcasts every week. The cost is less than a beer at a bar, and you get a better buzz with the Savage Premium. So go to glow.fm/Savage Premium for full access to ad-free podcasts and exclusive sound you'll not hear anywhere else. Thank you very much. We're speaking with the great genius, Jeff ROVIN, far-seeing man, novelist extraordinaire, martial artist, and all-around wonderful human being. And we're talking about, well, let's see what we're going to talk about. I want to kick it off with this. It's sort of like you and I get started. It starts here and goes there, Jeff. We have wonderful imaginations. This thing with Trump, I'm going to let you speak. He announces some big announcements coming, and he's peddling an NFT coin. You saw this, of course, didn't you?
Yeah.
How did that strike you?
Silly. That's the only word for it.
What is he doing? Why did he do a thing like that?
Well, I think we have to back up in order to answer that question. He was so badly treated for 4 years, and he knew it. A few of us knew it, and the country said, "No, you're crazy. This is not really happening. He's an evil person." Then we had all of this nonsense that we see now with the election, the collaboration between the authorities and Twitter to suppress information. You had the drug companies not admitting that they had a vaccine until after the election. All of these things, the Hunter Biden laptop, all of these things would have gotten him elected. It would have made the difference. That is a lot to live with. That's a lot to accept.
No, I accept he's been beaten to death. But who advises him to put out a coin with him dressed like Superman?
Well, but my point was that I think you kind of he has spent 2 years looking for a place to put his key, and he has not found it yet. And I think he's making these kind of ill-advised, kind of reactive stabs at things without any sense of how they're going to land. There's part of him, of course, we've always known that he likes to be in the limelight. We'll stop short of saying narcissism, but he's trying to get back in there any way that he knows how, but without the perspective that he had back in 2016.
Yeah, but even Steve Bannon said enough is enough. And people going to jail for the January 6th nonsense are saying, I didn't do this to be thrown in jail for him to sell coins.
You're absolutely right.
I'm not saying it. They are.
Right. Yeah, no, they
I'm through, frankly, with the Trump train. I got off the Trump train a few weeks ago when the Nazi was there, because there's no excuse for him saying he didn't know who Kanye West is. A piece of crap to begin with. Never should have been in the White House. I told, I'm going to get worked up. When Kanye West went into the Oval Office, Jeff, years ago,
yeah,
and threw his disgusting feet up on this sacred desk of ours with that piece of human trash of his, that fake human being, that non-person, the waste of human DNA, Kardashian. I said, this is the end of the road. Whoever's advising, and I know who must have done that. That had to be his daughter and Kushner advising to reach out to the black community. And then right after that, they came up with prison reform as a result of them meeting with Trump. So, you know, he sometimes makes huge mistakes by not thinking things through on his own. And this is one of them.
Okay, but what's happening here is we've conflated two topics. One is, why was he doing the things that he was doing, like announcing the Superman thing? And the other is, are we over Donald Trump? They're really separate issues. We can psychoanalyze why he is behaving this way, or we can look at, he made some terrible mistakes, starting with his attack on Ron DeSantis, which was unprovoked. It was an unforced error, and it turned a lot of people off, myself included.
You mean when he attacked DeSantis, dividing our own side?
Right. And you know, okay, you could say, well, it was the opening salvo of a campaign, but no, he was absolutely tone deaf about that. So on the one hand, you have all these terrible things that happen, and he's looking to lash out. Okay, we understand that. The other thing is, he is lashing out in the most insane ways possible. And so I think he's pretty much done himself in just a few weeks.
No, I believe he's become his worst enemy, and he's the enemy within. And, you know, people get old. Some of us get old gracefully and don't slip right to the end. As I learned in graduate school, and I've told my audience repeatedly, and I've talked about Biden over and over and over again, some people get old and they lose their judgment. It's the first thing to go in the elderly is the judgment. That's what I was taught by my public health thesis chairman. That's the first thing that goes is judgment. People think it's memory. It's judgment. I actually think he has had so much crap thrown at him. Number one, he eats like a pig. The man has absolutely no sense of a healthy diet. He doesn't exercise. Jeff, he's almost 80 years old. This takes a toll on a brain.
Yes, there's no question about that. And I've been advocating for healthy eating and Tai Chi and, you know, all of that for years. But that's really beside the point. This is not going to go anywhere except in a bloody few months of campaigning. What concerns me is a possible third-party run.
Oh God!
If he doesn't get the nomination, or when he doesn't,
out of spite, he would do it.
Exactly. Well, the spite. I don't know if it's spite or narcissism at that point.
All right.
You know,
either way, how do you separate spite from narcissism?
Well, you have to, because I think that we're dealing with a lot of different Hydra-headed issues here.
Look, he is the issue, and the thing is, I supported the hell out of him.
And I remember you were one of the first.
I would only support DeSantis now because he's the only one with a chance of winning. He's a governor, a great governor. The people in Florida love him. Democrats even love him. And he has a real track record as a fabulous governor. He also has a military background that's real. I understand he was a lawyer in the Navy SEALs, I believe. Whatever they call that. What do you call the lawyers?
Oh, the JAG.
He was a JAG in the Navy SEALs. Nevertheless, he did serve in the U.S. Navy. The man has a sterling background. His wife is gorgeous. She's a cancer survivor. He's a family man. He doesn't have any baggage. There's no history with him.
Michael Savage, a host like no other.
Hey, Savage listeners, I want to tell you about Kachava, my team's daily super blend. If you're like me, trying to stay on top of your health and get all your nutrients, then please listen, because Kachava has you covered. Kachava puts everything your body needs in one glass. All the superfoods, all the protein, all the greens, all the vitamins, all the omegas, all the benefits for your brain, your gut, your skin, your muscles, your heart, your whole health. No more compromise, no more guilt. No other nutritional shake does all this. They travel to the ends of the earth to source all the most powerful superfoods, and they crush them up. It's so simple. You take 2 scoops of powder, you add water, you blend it up, and you enjoy it. You're going to be surprised how good it actually tastes. My team drinks Kachava for breakfast, and they tell me they have energy all day long and they feel great. You've got to go try Kachava for yourself. Right now, they've got a special offer for my listeners. Go to kachava.com/savage. That's Kachava, Kachava, Kachava.com/savage. You're going to get 10% off your first order. That's Kachava.com/savage. What are we going to talk about? Well, how are we going to talk about this one? Headline: Man brutally assaulted in an anti-Semitic attack in Central Park. Don't know if you saw this, came out this morning.
Yeah.
You did see it?
Yeah, these attacks, whether it was the guy getting clubbed with a baseball bat last week from behind, or any of the subway pushing and that sort of thing.
No, this is against the Jewish person.
No, I
and the guy
understand
screams Kanye 2024.
I understand that, yeah. And I look, you and I both know that anti-Semitism not only isn't new, but it has never gone away. And the question is, why doesn't this incur the same indignation among the populace that anti-black, anti-gay, anti-anything rhetoric or actions do?
I have an answer to that.
Go ahead.
I'll go down the list. Madoff, Soros, Bankman-Fried. These people have made anti-Semitism almost fashionable because of their so visible Jewish names. They're not religious Jews in any way. We know that.
Don't forget Jeffrey Epstein, too.
I'm sorry. I couldn't even remember. I blocked certain names from my head.
Yeah.
We went from, as I joke, from Einstein to Epstein in one generation. When I grew up, Einstein, Salk, those were my heroes. And my mother would read the newspapers, the daily news. She was from another world. She'd only look for Jewish names if they did something wrong. And she would say, look what a shame he is to the Jewish people. But that was her way of reinforcing not to become a bad person. She would, or if she said, you never see a Jewish person doing this, she would say to me.
Yeah. And don't forget Anthony Weiner. And we've got, unfortunately, we've got a litany of worst possible examples to choose from. And then you have people like Chuck Schumer who are annoyingly silent about this issue. But look, this started years ago. Remember in New York, whenever you would have an attack against a gay, Christine Quinn would show up. If there were an attack against a black, Al Sharpton would show up. Attack against a Jew, Duff Heiken would show up. As soon as people started using identity to somehow segregate violence against groups, the Jews were left behind. And, you know, the idea of being Jewish and being a Zionist have become inseparable, whether justified or not. And as a result, any action against, any action that is taken to protect the state of Israel is perceived as anti-Muslim, and therefore any Jew is fair game. That's the thinking.
But when you see a guy like Kanye West making it fashionable to attack Jews, you know that it's going to, I even said it's going to trickle down to the street level of people attacking Orthodox Jews as targets because of his loud, filthy mouth. But you take a guy like Larry David, to me, one of the he actually epitomizes the worst. Him and Howard Stern, I hate to say it on a podcast, but I'll say what I say privately. Larry David and Howard Stern are the type that brought about the Holocaust in Germany. I know that's a horribly strong statement, but they make a mockery of being a Jew into a prize, into a virtue, rather. Larry David peeing on a cross on one of his shows. Larry David mocking Christians. Larry David mocking Jews. Howard Stern, perhaps he's almost identical, like a twin to Larry David. Do you know a Jew with a hair like that? What does Howard Stern look like without a wig? I said it on Twitter last week, and I saw that. Did you see the pictures?
That. Yeah, I saw what you tweeted. But here's the larger question: is where do you draw the line? For example, I interviewed Mel Brooks once, and he was talking about his exact quote was, "Everybody loves Hitler," because I was asking him about Springtime for Hitler and the producers. God. And the flying Star of David spaceship in History of the World.
I'll remember that. Yeah.
Right. So, are Jews to blame in any way for the perception that it's okay to do this? Now, most people don't understand that it is a tradition among the Jewish people to make fun of tragedy. Not make fun, but at least to treat it with a sense of humor, a kind of a self-effacing. You see it in Fiddler on the Roof.
Jeff, that's too complex for the average person down on the elbow thrashing level of life.
No, what I'm saying is it's trickled down. If we are doing it in the media, if we're doing it in movies, in high-profile movies, like I just said, Fiddler on the Roof, then other people may just think, oh, it's okay, we can do it too.
Look, there's a jealousy and an envy. So I'm online a lot. And every time I see the new code words, oh, he's about Bankman-Fried, another tribe member, a member of the tribe. That's the new code word. So I say yes, and so was Jonas Salk and Albert Einstein and many thousands of other great Jewish people. But they don't even get that part of it, about the advancements that were granted to the world through, I don't know how to put it, but say the good Jew as opposed to the bad Jew. But in every race, there's the good, the bad, and the indifferent, and the average, right?
Right.
But when you see so many prominent Jews today, Bankman-Fried and his corrupt parents at Stanford University who created this little Frankenstein, and the self-righteousness of them, and funding Democrats, and funding the hatred against, we'll go back to Trump, funding hatred for Republicans, funding hatred for white people. Eventually, people get disgusted, Jeff. That's what's happening.
Well, and don't forget Harvey Weinstein. I mean, everybody knew, everyone in Hollywood, everyone in Washington knew what he was, who he was, etc. But they took his money and posed for pictures anyway.
Yes.
So
Harvey Weinstein would be a poster boy for the Weimar Republic of the ugly one.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just laughed at that. It's not funny. It's true, and that's what's so sad about it.
What's true? What, did he be the poster boy for the Weimar?
He would absolutely. I just flashed to posters that would have been published in 1933 to 1938. Yes, he would have absolutely been that poster child.
Whenever I saw Weinstein's face, I thought of anti-Semitic posters from the Third Reich.
Yep.
So why are we having so many ugly Jews appear in our lifetime? Where are the Salks? Where are the Einsteins? Where are they? What happened to our people, Jeffrey?
I don't know, Michael.
Come on, you're the genius.
Yeah, well, but part of the problem is this whole idea of attrition, of bringing up people who have been what they're calling unheard voices, underrepresented voices, et cetera, means you have to push out the people who are already entrenched. In many cases, those are Jews. So they're getting pushed out of positions of leadership.
Wait, say that again. I kind of missed that.
Well, for example, I know a heart surgeon who lives on my street, and he was passed over, you'll forgive the expression, for the head of the department at a major university because he was white and Jewish. He said,
wait, a heart surgeon probably is as good as they come, if not better.
Exactly.
Top of the field. So that way they put some dumb minority in?
I can't say what minority they put in, but the person who was actually doing the recruiting said we have to go for underrepresented voices.
So we have to put idiots in affirmative action. Look, we knew the day would come that we get on an airplane and the guy couldn't fly the airplane.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. When is that going to happen? When you know how many years if I got on a commercial jet, I would look into the cockpit. If I didn't see a white guy with blue eyes, I would get off the plane. I used to joke. I preferred white guys with blue eyes that looked like they flew on aircraft carriers.
Okay, fine, but they may have been drinking, and you never know what's going on.
Well, they would have flown better drinking than an affirmative action appointee who can't even fly when he's straight.
Well, clearly they must.
All right, let's move on from that. But you know how I feel about affirmative action. I'm a victim of it, but it was a long time ago. So we're talking about a very important topic right now, which is racism at its core, real racism that results in, on the elbow thrashing level of reality, as a Chinese philosopher put it, that results in rhetoric becoming action. It's one thing to talk about stuff at a university. It's another thing for the people on the street to actually act it out. And a lot of this is being acted out against innocent people who are defenseless. You and I both know that most religious Jews are completely defenseless. They can't even defend themselves.
That's absolutely true. And I once had an encounter with a rabbi and his class on the streets in New York. And they were out for a walk and saw my martial arts cap, and they asked me about training, and I said, I'm happy to do it, just for free, obviously, just get in touch. And I was going to give him my number, and he said, it's a Sabbath, I can't write it down. So I'm thinking, all right, right there is part of the problem. Not that they were observant Jews, but that they're turning down an offer for self-defense. I don't know what to say. Whatever
happened to Erev Rubin or every Jew at 22? Where'd the Jewish Defense League go?
You mean the Meir Kahane group? Remember how radical he was in his time before he was assassinated?
I do remember. I remember when it happened. I was in a hotel around the corner.
Yeah.
Jeff, it was a shocking night. I rarely ever went to New York. I was there, went in the street, saw the crowds. What the hell is this about?
The problem with the JDL is they were extremely radical, and but then you can argue, well, so was Menachem Begin.
He was
in the day.
He was pretty crazy. People don't know that Menachem Begin was in fact a Jewish terrorist. He was a member of what, the Palmach or the other?
Yeah, but before statehood, and if I'm not mistaken, he was the one of the people who blew up the King David Hotel.
He also, people don't know this, and correct me if history proves me wrong, they were fighting amongst themselves of which Zionist group would dominate and run Israel after they won. They took, let's say, the Palmach versus whatever the other extreme right-wing group was, or whatever wing group, and they captured the other guy, the other Jew, and put their hands in the top of doors and close the doors and break their hands.
Right.
These were people who would do anything to win.
Which, ironically, was one of the things the Nazis did as well. But look, this is breaking the fingers of artists. One of the this is not new. This is not inherent to Jews. Look back at the Russian revolutions, the White Russians, the Black Russians, the Bolsheviks, the Mensheviks. This happens with every upheaval in history.
What does, Jeff?
The fact that you have fragmentation of this kind. I remember they made a joke of this in that wonderful Monty Python movie, The Life of Brian, where there were so many different anti-Roman groups that they were getting confused who belonged to what, and nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
The Savage Nation. It's Savage on demand.
Hey, will the lack of a red wave during the midterms lead to a more emboldened Biden? More wasteful government spending, higher taxes? How will you protect your hard-earned savings from the reinvigorated left? The answer, gold. Gold is the world's oldest, most proven form of currency. It's there for you when inflation soars, when other assets go sideways. And that's why Birch Gold is so thrilled to introduce a new product that reimagines gold as currency, the Goldback. This month, you'll get a free Goldback for every $5,000 purchased when you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a precious metals IRA with Birch Gold by December 22nd. Birch Gold will help you own gold and silver in a tax-sheltered account. Text SAVAGE to 989-898 to claim your free info kit on gold. Then talk to one of their precious metals specialists. Plus, with every purchase you make before December 22nd, you'll get a free Goldback. This is a great stocking stuffer, just in time for Christmas. Once again, text SAVAGE to 989-898. Protect your savings with gold today and get a free Goldback. Once again, text SAVAGE to 989-898. Protect your savings with gold today. Jeff, let's talk about Musk. I still like Musk.
Yeah.
Why is a guy like Drudge so anti-Musk, in your opinion? Every headline is an out-to-get-Musk headline with a twisted picture of his face. What is that about?
Oh, I would suppose part of it is envy. Because here's a guy who came in with money and managed to accomplish what all these other people have been unable to do over the years or decades even. But look, here's the thing that's incredible about that. He is exposing collusion between the government and Twitter.
Absolutely.
To suppress information, and people are not responding to that fact, to that horrifying fact. They're responding to, Elon Musk is suppressing free speech. What was going on before that?
Yeah, now they're screaming that he's a censor because he's blocking
because he's stopping people from doxing. This is...
But I do on my own Twitter account. If people put me down in a negative way, I delete them. I block them. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Why would I run my Twitter feed and let schmucks put me down?
Yeah, it was okay for people to let other activists, and that's in quotes, in very strong quotes, know where the Supreme Court justices lived and when to rally and protest them and try to assassinate Brett Kavanaugh. That was okay to them, but having Olbermann locked out from Twitter for maybe a week is somehow the greatest sin ever committed by a human being.
Twitter bans New York Times, Washington Post, CM reporters critical of Musk. Why shouldn't they?
Well, but that's a misleading headline. Were they critical of Musk, or are they critical of Musk for having banned them for doxing him and his children in real time?
Got it. Well, it's like that guy who was tracking his jet.
Right.
He has a right to privacy.
Yes.
Why would he let them track his jet? That's a security concern.
Yeah.
He's the richest man in the world. People have access to drones. Oops, I flew that drone right into the jet engine. It got sucked in and down went Musk. No, these are real concerns and they have to be addressed. And since there are no law enforcement agencies that are stepping into that breach, he's doing it himself. Jeff, let's go to some real serious stuff now.
Okay.
War and peace, life and death, Russia, Ukraine. I had the great Colonel McGregor on a podcast 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I love the interview because he's such a straight shooter. It's hard not to agree with everything he says. Now, he's roundly attacked as a stooge of Putin, as is anybody who wants peace. In fact, we talked about it. Anyone who calls for peace and calls Zelensky a criminal and a gangster is called a stooge of Putin, which is ridiculous. I personally detest Zelensky for a number of reasons. I don't think he's a hero. I think he's a pariah. And I also predict that when this is all over, he will be blamed for the war by most of the world and by his own people. He'll be castigated. And Zelensky will provoke the greatest wave of anti-Semitism we've seen since 1945. That's what I see coming.
It could well start in his own country.
It will. It will.
Yeah. I mean, those of us who have forebears from both Ukraine and Russia know that they left because of anti-Semitism, because it was Anatevka and Fiddler on the Roof.
If I were a rich man.
Well, and you know what? Then you'd be accused of all kinds of crimes against humanity because you're a wealthy Jew.
You mean why are other wealthy people not accused of crimes against? Well, they are. It's just get the rich, eat the rich.
Well, but it's Warren Buffett has not been subjected to some of the same criticism as a Jew.
Here's a sensitive question, Jeff, and my mind's just jumping around now with you. Okay, let's go back to War and Peace.
Yeah.
So Colonel McGregor told my audience that come December, January, he was massing troops. There were going to be 200,000 troops. They were going to do a land invasion. Putin's been doing a very light touch war thus far using old equipment. I asked him about the blown up Russian tanks. He said most of those were Ukrainian tanks that were built in Russia. They're all T-38s. And he said they put Russian markings on them to make it look like they're blowing up Russian tanks. Russia has lost 100,000 men, but so has Ukraine. I was shocked by it to hear that 100,000 Ukrainian men have been sacrificed for this war so far. I actually never heard that because all we hear about is how they're winning and Russia's losing. He said Russia hasn't even begun to fight yet. And in many ways, he said Putin is like the liberal amongst his team. They wanted all-out war, and they wanted this over with months ago. They wanted a devastating invasion and a crushing of Ukraine and get it over with. So what do you think is going to happen?
We've had this conversation before, and really nothing has changed since then. At some point, the war will stop. I don't see it spreading. I don't see it becoming nuclear. The stakes in both cases are too high for everyone. Right now, it's a successful money laundering scheme, and everybody is getting rich off of it. That invariably happens with war. So I see that continuing until, well, it's time to stop sending billions of dollars to Ukraine without oversight. We just can't send anymore. And so then that's when it'll stop. What's going to happen is Putin will get the concessions that he wanted, and having all of this death and destruction in his wake, we will move in and rebuild, spending money, enriching contractors,
more money. In other words,
rearming Ukraine. Russia and Iran will continue their, mutually beneficial arrangement for arms. Nothing. That's the tragic part of this, is with all of this death and bloodshed, nothing is really going to change. Nothing is going to be different that couldn't have been solved with a diplomatic resolution at the beginning.
That's the whole point. It's going to come to an end anyway. Meanwhile, millions of poor Ukrainians have been displaced from their own country. Europe has been flooded with Ukrainians. Will they ever go home?
Well, Europe and the United States.
Yeah, but will they ever go home once they've tasted the good life? Why would they ever go back to that hellhole?
Well, that's the same question we can ask about our own illegal occupants. They won't.
Do the Ukrainians work? Those who are being brought here? I don't even know where they are.
Well, they're getting free health care. They're getting money, and I know a lot of them are working, but they're working. And this is interesting. These people who are being called asylum seekers are actually economic refugees. They're sending money home to points in South America, to Europe, to Africa, to wherever they're coming from.
Of course, they'll send where we have poor relatives.
Right. This is not new. This has been going on. If you ate in a Chinese restaurant in New York over the last 40 years, there were illegal waiters and waitresses, and they were sending money home to everywhere from China to Malaysia to Taiwan. This is not new.
So Valery Zalukny, commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, says some 200,000 fresh Russian troops are being prepared for, quote, another go at the Ukrainian capital city. The attack, he speculated, will come by the end of January in the dead of winter. That's exactly what Colonel McGregor said was going to happen.
Yeah.
People are saying this will be the USA's greatest defeat since Vietnam.
Well, I don't know if that's entirely true, but it's certainly not going to be a shining moment for us. What will we have achieved? Is NATO stronger or weaker than at the start? Is Putin stronger or weaker than at the start? Biden has been an embarrassment since Afghanistan, since before that, really, but certainly Afghanistan. The real crimes there, what's his relationship with China? How much is he beholden to them? How much is he beholden to Ukraine? These are all important questions that probably will never be answered.
Okay.
And I'm sure you saw today that San Bernardino wants to secede from California.
That's another big question. Reparations.
Oh, reparations that's a separate question. But if we're talking about statecraft and the real problem spots in the world, we need not look any farther than the United States right now.
No, we don't. The Title 42 issue, Biden looking the other way while our borders are being overrun, Mayorkas being an obvious plant of the worst elements on the planet, sitting in charge of DHS. Some Republicans are trying and screaming out loud about it and blocking the border. Where this will go is anyone's guess.
The Savage Nation. It's savage, uncut, unfiltered, and raw.
The Air Traffic Out of Control podcast has landed. Each week you can hear crazy, funny, and downright nerve-wracking audio from airport control towers around the globe.
Well, we're outside here. They're saying the ramp is closed. They won't let us park because of Air Force One.
It's Tower 192. There apparently is a passenger opened up an overwing exit and is now on the wing attempting to jump. Can you alert police, please?
Real audio from pilots and air traffic controllers.
You absolutely need to maintain radio silence if it's not ATC related. You're an obstruction to air traffic control. Otherwise, we can file some paperwork.
Air Traffic Out of Control is now available wherever you get your podcasts. Don't miss it.
We haven't yet gotten to so many topics, Jeff. Is there anything you want to touch on before I bring up more stuff?
No, I am at your disposal to. The reason I mentioned this idea of secession of San Bernardino, it's a complex process and is unlikely ever to happen because Congress will never approve it, which is necessary to form a new state. But what we're seeing is this fracturing of states, certainly the southern border states. You got Texas, Arizona, California has its, God knows, its problems. What's happening in the cities is beyond, God, it's just so sad to see New York being humbled the way it is, and for no good reason. The Mayor Adams finally called Washington and said, "Look, we've got 30,000 new immigrants here. We can't afford to keep them.
Even he has said that we can't take care of them."
Yeah, and they're still coming. They're still coming. So
you were a lifetime New Yorker. If anyone was Mr. New York, it was you. You were Mr. Manhattan. You were the born and bred Manhattan Indian.
Yeah.
To me, and even you left. How many years is it now? 3, 4?
3, yeah, no, good memory. 3 years. Yeah, I just had a sense that something bad was coming. And so we ended up leaving 3 months before COVID struck. And that was a heartbreaking decision. But New York had already begun to change. The smell of pot was everywhere, even then, right? But it's not coming back. It's not likely to come back. The solution of legalized pot and gambling is not going to produce what New York needs. And then you have just the arts seem to be coming apart.
Did you say the arts?
The arts.
Well, of course, they're pushing transgender. They're pushing minorities. They're pushing whites out of the theater. What do you expect to happen?
No, I expect exactly that to happen. Look, when I was growing up there and I worked in my uncle's costume store off of Times Square, I saw hung around with what we called cross-dressers, he-she's back then.
Right. Not a big deal.
It really isn't a big deal.
My father's antique store on Ludlow Street, the marketplace, the little poor person's antique stores. Yeah. So gays would come in and my father would talk to them and I would meet them. And, they were They were buyers of his stuff.
Yeah.
There was two guys named, and I called them nice and nasty. One of them was a nice one. The other one was a nasty one, like a bitchy wife. One was like the husband who was nice, and the other one was like a bitchy wife. Whatever you'd say to them, the nice one would say something nice to you, and the nasty one would say a nasty thing to you. Says, I got older and hung around the village. I ran into them. They had an antique store there. There they were, the same exact. I walk into their antique store, and the nice guy was still nice and was still nasty. But so what? They were like a couple. Didn't matter to us. My father never really ridiculed them. He didn't make fun of them.
Yeah, but I think one of the big differences is, look, so we grew up around cross-dressers. We grew up around gays, with gays. The last of the burlesque houses on 42nd Street was still in operation. We would deliver gowns and boas and God knows what else to these places.
So you delivered gowns to the burlesque theaters?
We delivered gowns to the burlesque shows and to the what were then illegal gay clubs.
Oh my God!
Cross-dressers would perform. Oh no! And
oh my God! You grew up. You were really hardcore Manhattan.
Oh yeah, and on top of that, my uncle was an auxiliary cop, so we would end up making these deliveries in the squad car. But anyway,
right, and then he'd arrest those he was selling to.
it was, and his partner was a guy named Johnny Kuhl, Kuhl, German martial artist who was one of the first to teach me martial arts. They were also working as bagmen for the mob. The whole thing was insane and wonderful. But here's
now that's a screenplay that no one would produce, but. Come on, that's a hell of a beautiful. That's a great that would be like a great Peter Falk B movie.
It was interesting.
Wouldn't it be fun? Could you imagine Ben Gazzara, Peter Falk, and that?
The whole John Cassavetes.
John Cassavetes. That's the best. The best of all of them.
Yeah, Husbands and all of those great.
Wait! I just stumbled on the movie Husbands with Cassavetes because I can't find it online. Can you find it?
Yeah.
Was it a good movie?
It's all of John Cassavetes' movies.
He's my favorite. You know what? The Killing of a Chinese Bookie. That movie killed me.
Great.
I've watched it over and over again.
Yeah, and Gloria with his wife at the time. All of these Jenna Rollins. These movies were terrific. They were heartfelt. Even when they weren't perfect, there was so much of interest.
How many screenplays have you written, Jeff?
None. I don't like that medium.
I thought that you worked in Hollywood.
I do, but that's a whole separate.
You're primarily a novelist, not a screenwriter.
Yeah, I just like to work alone, and novels allow you to do that. The point I was going to make about the way you and I grew up is, it wasn't about identity and money. Think about this. Gay liberation in the early 70s was urgently needed. Women's liberation, all of that stuff, and we supported it wholeheartedly.
What was it called? The one in the village, the Stone.
There was the Gay Liberation Front.
No, when the gays rioted. What was the club?
Stonewall. The Stonewall. I think it was 68, 69. I
used to drink in a place called the Dugout, which was on that down. Yeah. Do you know the Dugout?
Yeah, I do.
Jeff, can I tell you a Dugout story?
Please. Yeah. It's your show.
So no, it's your show. So
no, go.
You're saying gay liberation was necessary. So I used to drink a lot of beer in the Dugout. It had sawdust on the floor. You'd go down. It was on Houston Street. I think it was on Houston. I'm not sure. Way over. So it was filled with the bohemians of the time in Manhattan. And I'm 18, and I'm encountering them and finding them fascinating. And one guy does a cartwheel on the floor. He gets drunk and he does like a handstand, and he knocks an uptown woman off her chair backwards into the sawdust accidentally. And he leans over and he says, "I'm sorry, madam, but if you swim into fishes, you're going to get wet." I remember that. It was so remarkably theatrical. He didn't mean to knock her over. He was drunk and did a cartwheel, and she took it in good stead. So I had my palm read in that place by a Native American. I don't know his tribal affiliation. And I'll never forget to this day his strong, amazing hands on my hand. He ran his hand on my fingers, read my palm, and he said, "You might make a good sculptor." Those were the days, Jeff.
Yeah.
And Jeff, I don't have this anymore. I live alone in the suburbs, basically. I do my podcast. I don't even go over the bridge into San Francisco. And yet I dreamed last night I was down in San Francisco again, walking the streets, because I found in San Francisco for many years a piece of that New York that you and I are talking about. It was fascinating to me. It was culturally extremely diverse and rich. I felt, I mean, I was aware of where I was walking, and I saw bad people. I would avoid them, but I wasn't really afraid to walk in the streets at night. I would walk alone. I loved looking into bars, into hotel windows. I like passing through life, swimming in the fish tank. It's all gone after COVID. And now the violence, I don't even go over the bridge.
Well, and then there's also gentrification. Don't forget, in New York, you could go from the comedy clubs, the Cafe Wow, all of those comedy clubs in the West Village, to the gay bars, which were secretive because they were illegal.
Where were they?
They were spread out all over downtown. Typically in bars that closed down, they had to pay off the police in order to operate. But the men weren't allowed to touch. Sometimes they would bring in these huge semis, the trucks, and you would be admitted into the back, and then they would close the doors and have those, those workman's lights hanging from the sides.
In the truck?
In a truck, inside of a truck.
The truck became the bar?
The truck became the bar.
Oh, my goodness.
And after an hour or two, they would just usher you out, and the truck would drive away.
And we wonder where AIDS came from, right?
Well, no, nobody wondered, because I remember going to the LGBT center in this time, during this period in the West Village, because I was fascinated by the rise of all of these labels. I remember there was one meeting where this bisexual guy was complaining. I hate the fact that when people hear that I'm bisexual, they jump to conclusions that I'm having twice as much sex as everyone else.
Well, you mean that's that guy saying it?
Yeah. He said, yeah.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Oh, yeah. He said, the bisexual man said, I hate that people hear that word and assume that I'm having twice as much sex because I'm sleeping with men and women. He said, I don't like that people jump to conclusions when they hear labels. So I raised my hand and said, so if I tell you I'm a Republican member of the NRA, you don't form a conclusion? And everyone in the room gasped, right? So right there, you have the double standard that we're seeing today of people judging who you are by how you quote unquote identify. Only now it's become calcified, right? It's you have become this identity. And by the way, even then, you would have gay liberation had happened, so to speak. But then you would have the different factions, the different fetishes arguing who should be the spokespeople for the entire group, which is how you
gayness became not fun after it became official.
It became, well, that's the point I was getting to in a very roundabout way, is that you end up with a rainbow flag. You end up having to acquire more and more identities, which is how once gay marriage was codified, where's the money going to come from for new causes? Well, they turned to transgender.
Oh.
And so all of a sudden you need 3 bathrooms. And then that was only in the Obama years. Look at how far that has gotten out of control. Now you've got drag queens. I used to love drag queens, just hanging with them in the city, but you don't bring them to kindergarten classes or wherever else they're showing up to somehow mainstream this, because next is pedophilia.
Oh,
that is being quote unquote normalized.
Well, we know that sex with animals is coming. We know that.
Well, but everything is polyamory is coming, and this is not a judgment about any of that. It's just a process. It's how things work.
It's judgmental of me to say anyone who screws an animal should be shot, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, look, each of us has our own quirks and issues. And
Jeff, come on, you can't say that screwing an animal is in the norm of human behavior.
I'm not going to say it is. But then again, look, I don't live in a place where, the only companion is a sheep. So I don't know. I don't know, Michael. I'm sorry.
Oh, you are really becoming liberal in your old age, Jeff.
No. It's just the opposite.
So Jeff Rowan says it's okay to screw a sheep if you're lonely.
I didn't say that, Michael. I didn't. I said I'm not in a position to make a judgment about that. Only for myself. Do you know how
syphilis arose in the Western Hemisphere?
I have a feeling you're going to tell me.
In my early epidemiological readings, I encountered literature, science literature, which stated and tried to demonstrate that it was the conquistadors in South America who were lonely, who had sex with llamas and transmitted the European pox, as it was called, to the llama population, from where it went from zoonotic into the human population in South America. Would you believe it? I mean, it's plausible when you look at AIDS and at monkeypox and things like that.
Right. Okay. Well,
no, it's just stuff. We're just talking about stuff.
Yeah. No. But the point is that we can't judge cultural proclivities from our position. I mean, we can judge it, but it wouldn't be right. It's like I have this discussion with my doctor all the time because he doesn't like my Eastern approach to medicine. And I tell him, I just don't think that a lot of what you're doing is right. Because I walk in and he's trying to give me shingles shot, this vaccine.
Oh, no, I never take any of those.
I should be taking preventative calcium blockers because I'm of an age where arthritis could be an issue.
Oh, no, dangerous.
I said, do you hear what you're doing? You're trying to sell me all of these drugs that I don't want.
Don't even work. They're deadly.
He said, you can't blame me for trying. And I said, I can blame you for trying because there are people who will actually take your advice and poison themselves.
Absolutely crazy. Wow.
Home of borders, language, culture, the Savage Nation.
I think our conversation has taken a turn that I didn't expect. I understand you're non-judgmental. I get that. And I know where you're coming from. And I know about cultural norms and cultural disparities, having worked in odd places in the world. Let's jump to White Lotus, for example. The White Lotus ceramic heads, which is of a woman with a beard, become very popular. And there's a local store in San Francisco here that sells, by the way, the Testa de Moro. Apparently, it's of a male's face with, the one. Did you watch White Lotus?
I don't watch the show, but I know what you're talking about.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Of all people, hand-painted heads of a man with flowers in his hair. It's more than that. It's kind of a binomial figure from Italy of women's faces with beards. It's unbelievable. I'm going to send you this link to the picture right now.
Okay, but I think the point you have to make with that is, in many cultures, for example, Satan is depicted with the head of a goat. Look at all the Egyptian gods with the heads of different animals. There's a difference between reality and representation. And we have to be careful not to assume, people had the head of an ibis back then, because look at the statue we found. We have to look at these things with a discerning eye.
Well, we are looking at things with our discerning eyes. I can't believe you've not watched White Lotus as a great
it's one of those things, Michael. Everybody tells me I have to watch this show or that show.
And I know. How much can you watch?
No. And you're not wrong. It's just that I'm watching a lot of streaming movies right now for work that I'm doing. And that's a lot of stuff to watch. And one still tries to read, actually, too.
You read? You actually read things called books? Wow.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I have shelves full of them.
Yeah. But okay, you said this went in a direction you weren't planning. Where were you planning to go?
No, I had no plans. I figured it'd be
you didn't.
A year wrap-up, just free association. But since we're talking about television and movies, it's one of my favorite topics because I'm a fanatic at night. That's how I relax, as I watch movies. And Netflix is beaten to death, but I've been finding stuff on Netflix from Europe, South America that's phenomenal. Really great.
Australia. There's a lot of stuff from around the world.
I love Spanish movies. I like Sicilian movies set in Sicily. They're really well done.
Yeah, and then there are the Indian movies that do what operas do. They could take an idea that's worth about 10 minutes and spread it out to 3.5 hours.
I've watched some of the Indian detective stories. After a while, it just wears me out. They just wear me out.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, where are we going to go? Where are we going as a nation? Will this country survive Joe Biden's reign of? I won't even call it a reign of terror, but he's inflicting a cultural terror upon this nation. Why did he just yesterday give a speech about codifying gay marriage at this point in American history when it's already legal? What was that about?
It's political theater, you know that. And so much of what is being done now is political theater, but people are taking it very, very seriously. You actually made the point months and months ago about whose idea was it to put abortion on the Supreme Court calendar before the election?
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So what I have to take a look at is where are American priorities now? Because you have inflation, you've got wokeness, you've got all of these issues that
a border that's been melted down with third world diseased people coming in. Where do you think all of these diseases are coming from? You bring in 5 million people from countries where tuberculosis, influenza, COVID are endemic, and you don't understand why the hospitals are being overrun?
Well, they do understand. They just don't care. This is about control. We've said that many times. Why are there still vaccine mandates when it's clear that it's not a vaccine and is not particularly effective?
Yes.
So, you ask where we're going and are we going to survive?
Yes.
People are not pushing back against these revelations.
I know they've given up.
Of corruption. Right. They just don't seem to care. And I can't account for that. This is not the America that I know. And
nobody gets worked up over very much except the lefts.
Look, you and I both have known Marxists over the years. They love to get angry. And if they're not angry, they're not happy. And so we're seeing people who are just looking to be mad at something, and they have picked the right. They have picked the traditional America. They picked an America where we used to be.
Right, a normal guy is considered the enemy. I saw that an LGBT are screaming about dragophobia now. They say to
there's dragophobia because it's being pushed in everybody's faces.
Oh no, I said to children, you start pushing this on children, you're going to make people homicidal. Stop
that's what I'm saying is it was never in the forefront of anyone's thoughts. And so it's increasing with a degree to which
why are they brainwashing little boys into saying they're girls? You and I both know that children are all gender fluid up until a certain age. You can easily tell a boy if he has soft feelings and likes his mother's clothing that he's gay and convince him to be gay. You can easily tell him he's trans. You can brainwash children. It's child abuse. But what's going on? Here's another crazy story. The Idaho murders, 33 days. 4 people stabbed to death. Why can't they find that person, Jeff? Write the novel.
Because they don't want to, maybe?
That's what I'm afraid of.
You have to wonder, what is the motivation to even arrest people anymore if they're going to be let out of jail? And when is that going to change? My wife was in New York 2 days ago, and she said, it's just not the city at all that we left. I don't want to go back. I don't want to see what it's become now. She said there was somebody relieving himself in the subway car.
Oh,
and it was a crowded subway car. And this is not the city, even at its worst, that I remember.
Well, 5 years ago, I was eating in North Beach. This is before COVID. And a gentleman went by. I would call him an animal who should have had his head broken open with a nightstick. Dropped his pants and took a crap right outside the restaurant window. I never went back to that street again. I almost threw up thinking about it.
Yeah.
There's not a third world nation on earth where that would be accepted. The men would have come out of the restaurant and beat the bastard up with chairs.
Well, we see that happening around the world. If they catch a rapist, forget it. If somebody is
well, that's where I'm going. What's happening, Jeff? We're moving towards vigilantism. It's the only thing that's going to save this country. Am I advocating it? I don't know. I'm telling you, I'm predicting it. I'm not advocating it at all. People are not going to take this much longer.
You and I have written about Reconstruction and in mass hysteria and the problems that caused. And yes, vigilantism is an unfortunate result of oppression. But what happens if you speak out? You and I have both been canceled for various reasons.
Oh, I can't go to England,
I was just going to say.
I can't even get my fish and chips, right?
Right. You've been banned from going to the United Kingdom. You get canceled brutally, publicly, and your livelihood is threatened and blah, blah, and blah. And so you just don't bother. Now, you and I care enough to still bother, but we're also in a position where we can weather this.
We worked on together. What were you referencing just now about vigilantism?
Well, we were talking about Reconstruction and the rise of the Klan in Stop Mass Hysteria.
Oh, the rise of the Klan. Now, was it you who wrote that the Klan was a self-defense group?
I don't know if those were my exact words, but that was the reason that it came into being.
Is that true?
Oh, yeah.
No, I need to clarify this because I've had this discussion where I said I read somewhere that the Ku Klux Klan did not spontaneously arise. It arose after Reconstruction because freed slaves were rampaging through the South, raping, murdering. Is that true?
Look, that's anecdotal, and that was not entirely the reason. What happened was all these former landowners, these property owners, the farmers, came back from the war and found out they owed back taxes, and found out their Confederate money was no good. They needed Union dollars, had no way to earn it. And so they were lashing out at the carpetbaggers and others.
Who were the carpetbaggers?
The carpetbaggers were the Northerners who came down to exploit the fallen South and to plant their flag, so to speak.
Well, who were they? Northerners?
No, Northerners, yeah.
Were they Jewish? I'm joking. I got a joke at it.
Well, I would have to say it was unlikely you would have found native Jews in a lot of these areas.
Michael Savage, a host like no other.
Well, I'm reading now from Stop Mass Hysteria, page 153. The Klan didn't have a monopoly on creating violent hysteria in Louisiana. A single rumor, which, like the Salem witch trials, was originally sourced from children, ended in hundreds of deaths. And then there's a story about what happened. Transformed indignation and anger was transformed into mass hysteria. But mass hysteria with the will, the mandate, and the tools to set things right. Mass hysteria that didn't burn off with the settling of a single score. Stop mass hysteria.
Yeah. Look, January 6th, these bogus kangaroo court hearings are not just about January 6th. They are about punishing anybody who will think of standing up to a corrupt system or a corrupted system. When I started writing fiction and did a lot of thrillers, techno thrillers, my motto, so to speak, was that the system works. The system works. There are always bad actors, as they call them now, but ultimately the FBI, the CIA, the government works. We police ourselves. We uncovered My Lai. We put the perpetrators on trial. We didn't need Nuremberg trials from some other country to do that. We self-correct. Civil rights, Lyndon Johnson.
Is it still true, though?
Is what true? What
you're saying, that we self-correct?
Yeah. I think we always have, and we always do. But we've crossed some kind of line now where the forces that are rallied against the individual make it very difficult to stand up.
That's why people are.
That Norman Rockwell figure at a town hall standing up proudly to address issues. You're going to see parents dragged out of school board meetings by police.
Horrible, just a nightmare. It's sort of like a Clockwork Orange, 1984-ish, where the good are now the bad are now the good. It's almost the Bob Dylan song.
Well, look, in Clockwork Orange, they ended up hiring criminals to be police because only they were violent enough to deal with the new breed of criminals.
Oh, God, I know that's where we're going.
It's all of these science fiction novels and motion pictures. if you want to know where Ukraine ends up, take a look at H.G. Wells's Things to Come from 1936. He predicted World War II, but had it dragging on forever until basically there was nothing left to fight and no one left to fight over it.
Are we still fighting World War II?
In some respects, sure. We're seeing the repercussions of that, aren't we? I don't think national characters have changed very much since then, except for ours. It's really sad.
Biden claims his Uncle Frank won the Purple Heart, but turns out he made it. How can a serial pathological liar like this still remain in office? It says there's no evidence of the award and key details of the story are chronologically impossible. The 80-year-old commander-in-chief Biden has a habit of sharing false or embellished personal anecdotes to build a connection with his audience. My dad, when I got elected vice president in 2008, he said, Joey, Uncle Frank, fought in the Battle of the Bulge, blah, 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 and he won the Purple Heart and he never received it. He never got it. Do you think you could help him get it? So I got him the Purple Heart. It turns out it's a complete made-up story.
Yeah. I think on the list of Joe Biden's infractions, that's probably number 1,000 on a list of the top 100 of things.
He's a pathological liar.
Yeah, well, but that's just the point. Is what about his relationship with China? I think if nothing is more critical, there is nothing more critical than that right now. It may have resulted in the death of 13 American service members in Afghanistan because we were using a less than secure airbase to evacuate personnel.
Where did those weapons go?
Well, we know where they went.
Where?
All over the place.
Okay, they were sold all over the world markets.
Yeah, they'll end up back here one way or another.
So, Jeff, we're doing a yearly roundup of the year of our Lord 2022. Are we going to predict what's coming in the year 2023? Should we do that after the first of the year?
I don't think we'll know anything more then. We could talk about our concerns for what the present administration will do with COVID and mandates and locking us down. What Generation Z is going to do to recover from their malaise.
Got it.
From the lack of an education.
Oh, God, are they stupid?
Well, there are so many threads leading into 2023, none of them good, except for things like the space program. And I've said this on your show before. That's really the next battleground, so to speak.
But will we be dragged into the Ukraine war? Will we? We do have boots on the ground. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
We've had special forces there from the beginning. Everybody knows that as well. Yeah. They were advisors, just like in Vietnam, training the Ukrainians to use equipment, teaching them battlefield tactics. God knows how many men we have on the field right now. Will this grow, or will someone come to their senses and stop this?
Well, we are busy restocking our munitions and armaments from what we left behind in Afghanistan. And so I'm not concerned that it's going to grow into a bigger war. As long as the money laundering is working just fine, things will probably stay at the current level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that is the main issue going into next year.
What will be?
It's these other things that I've laid out. It's this national loss of a singular identity. We used to be hyphenates. One day a year, we had a parade that we went back to being Americans. That's not happening anymore. And as a result, you're seeing, as we started discussing, Jews are being attacked. Whether that extends to other minorities, who can say?
Well, the attack on Asians in New York, for example.
Oh yeah, I had Asian friends from New York come up for martial arts training because they were that afraid of being out in the street.
Why are they anti-Asian? Because of COVID? They say
no. This was before COVID.
Oh, they just hate Asians.
Well, one of the things is that, and again, I don't want to generalize, but the Asians that I know are industrious, educated, and hardworking.
In other words, they succeed, and they have the businesses in the minority neighborhoods in many cases, and they go to school. They get straight A's in school. I know, yeah. There's also a sense of a closed society, and that is what the Jews represent to a lot of people. And any group that is cocooned that way is naturally suspect by others. Well, that's the way it's always been, but where this will go is anyone's guess, being fanned as it is by the Biden administration and ignored, by the way, by the Biden administration at the same time, making up that it's white supremacists doing all of this attacking when it isn't. We all know that this is a specific group in America that is responsible for the largest amount of violence in the streets. Well, sure. I mean, look, we've talked about how every blue city has fallen to ruin. And you can't go out at night the way you used to. The prices in New York are out of control. A $30 turkey sandwich. Don't you get bored? Don't you get bored where you're living? I'm not even going to say where. Don't you miss walking in New York? Oh, desperately every day. But the New York that I love is gone. It's not gone. Coming back. That's how I deal with it. Yeah. So whether I were there, I'm glad I wasn't there for COVID. A lot of the people that I know are still twitching like Inspector Dreyfus from the Pink Panther movies. There's post-traumatic stress throughout the city. Well, it's affected me. I don't go anywhere. I'm invited occasionally to a this or to a that. I don't even go to the university club, which I used to like to go to a few times a year. Yeah. They had a holiday party last week. I was tempted to go to the bar, see the tree, see the people. I knew 100% I'd wind up with the flu. Yeah. Well, so, but to get back to 2023 for a second, what is the game plan for 5 million illegal immigrants? Why has the administration wanted them here? Why are they still coming? I think you're going to see a quick closing of the door. Well, sure. Even Newsom said the state will go broke if he does. Newsom the other day said, California cannot afford it, basically, unless he seals the border. Right. So even Newsom knows there's a cost to this craziness. So everybody knew that was where it was going to go if you let this continue. Why did the administration let 5 million people into the country? Why? Because many of whom are drug dealers. We've seen you see these young men with the nice shaved hair. They're all drug dealers. Yeah. Well, and without even labeling or blaming, what I'm asking is, if you know that fentanyl deaths and availability are going to go up 1,000%, why let them in? Why let potential Jeff, we're asking the wrong questions. You're a screenwriter. Isn't it possible that the government is run by, quote, them? By whom? Jeff, let's start from the top. The drug cartels are running our country. And we don't need the drug cartels to be running our country. You've got Soros and other people pouring tons of money into the coffers. The drug money is really not the issue. What the question is, why would you want to decay the country from within like that? Because you hate the country, because you're a mental. Well, that's a simple answer, but you want to remain in power. You remain in power by scaring and subjugating the general populace into voting for you. That only you can stop this problem. Right? If Ron DeSantis were president, you would see the military on the border. That's where they belong, right? Okay, well, if I were president, I would start the deportation proceedings of these 5 million to begin with, and then I'd go back to the previous 5 million. I would run those buses around the clock, and I'd put the ACLU lawyers on the buses with them. And I think any cockamamie lawyer who comes out from NYU screaming racism, immediately throw them on the bus and say, you're right. You're going to go to Mexico and Guatemala with them. Okay, so here's the answer to the question. Doesn't that feel good when I say that? Yeah, I see your face light up, so that's important to me. Look, when Rudy Giuliani became mayor of New York, I was frankly shocked by the Gestapo tactics
that were used against the homeless, the squeegee men who was, washing windows without being asked.
They were disgusting. Those squeegee men. They ruined
I'm not saying.
I am so glad
weren't.
Giuliani used Gestapo. That's what we need is Gestapo tactics used on them, not on American people going to a school board meeting. You know that.
I don't disagree, but what I'm saying is that at the time, after Dinkins, after Koch, after all of the hands off, Giuliani comes in like a whirlwind, cleans up the streets. 42nd Street is practically torn down and rebuilt. They said he Disneyfied it, but you know what? It turned into a commercial heaven, if you will. So if you have a President DeSantis or somebody of that caliber who comes in with the same attitude of there's an invasion going on, we're getting rid of the invaders. There are drug dealers, they're going to be fighting the military, the American military. Fill in the blank with whatever needs to be filled, he's going to fill it. All right. Maybe Donald Trump would too. I don't know. But the point is that unless that happens, we cannot endure as
a nation.
A nation. You've said it all along: borders, language, and
culture. Borders, culture. Language, and culture. And culture does not mean teaching little children in the kindergarten to be drag queens.
No, but you have to stop. We have to stop this attack on anything European. All of a sudden the classical composers are no good. It's okay to deface classical artwork.
Oh, it's frightening. It's just frightening.
Change.
It's just frightening. It's just frightening to see the degradation of our civilization, the way ISIS did this when they took over those portions of Western Syria and whatnot, and destroyed great works of art going back to the 11th century.
Oh, sure, the statues and the Taliban did the same thing.
Yeah, but we have an American Taliban. They're called the American left. We know that they are the American Taliban. Jeff, I think we have concluded it with borders, language, and culture as these are the only thoughts, but not the only. These are the fundamental structural ideas to save the nation.
Yeah, barring that, you're going to end up with, as Adams and Franklin warned, brother against brother. It's or sister against brother, or whatever combination suits you.
You cannot keep repressing the white male forever. The man will react. You can't tell him his ancestors died for nothing, and he stole the land, and he's garbage, and his race is no good, and his children shouldn't have been born. They're going to go to the barricades, and they're going to fight back, and they're going to come back like banshees if this keeps up.
Yeah, there's no question that it's going to be unpleasant. Yeah, unless we have real leadership.
But you're right. The attack on the European American has to stop, and it has to stop yesterday. And it can't come out of that filthy degenerate's mouth anymore, Biden, about how bad the white male is. This man is the one poisoning the American mind. Again, appeasing the worst elements of America day and night. But I'm starting to sound like I'm back on the radio, and I'm not. I am doing part.
We also have to stop selling our farmland to China. That's a separate story.
I don't think China is as big a threat as the American Taliban, which is the American left.
Oh, I do not disagree with that at all. Although China in space, and I'm going to keep coming back to this, is when your infrastructure and communications go down, then you have some problems.
I get it. You're saying they're going to take us down from space with the comic book radiation.
Well, what I'm saying is that that's one reason why it was important that Artemis went to the moon and show that we still have mastery of aspects of space. We've got that mysterious robot plane that returned from several years.
Yeah, how do we still have a technology at all? It's almost like a remnant of another America.
Well, I want to say that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Richard Branson are contributing to that.
They're my heroes. Absolutely.
NASA's doing a pretty good job now too.
I know. I can't believe this.
That robot that went to the moon was just so insanely efficient. It's inspiring. And,
I think I'm going to go look at my Bonestell paintings after we get through. We did that before I showed you that book.
Yeah,
Jeff. If I do not speak with you before, have whatever you celebrate, probably Hanukkah. You light the candles.
We've got Hanukkah and Christmas in this house, but mostly we have goodwill towards all people and a hope that next year will be better. Next year in Jerusalem, right?
Next year in New York City would be better than Jerusalem.
Well, it would be, but
if we can ever go back to New York, that would be better than going to Jerusalem, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
One last note. You mentioned Hanukkah. So what is the meaning of Hanukkah? I'm going to tell a Hanukkah story because it's going to come out probably that week.
Good.
What is it? It's a children's holiday, people. I never understood it. You light the lights with 8 candles with one in the middle, the 9th, the lighting candle. What does it mean? The story goes is that the Syrians that invaded Israel, sacked the temple. It wasn't the Romans. Or was it the Assyrians? Sacked the holy temple and destroyed, knocked over the. And allegedly there was supposed to be enough holy oil left for only for one night, and they relit the candle, and it lasted for 8 nights. So to me, I've taken that story to mean the following, which is that no matter how down we may be individually or as a nation, when we think we cannot go on anymore, and we think there's not even enough light left for one night, there's enough holy oil left in all of us to keep going on for a much longer time than that. That's when I light the candles. I try to rekindle in myself the idea that I'm much stronger than I sometimes feel, and that this nation is much stronger than we sometimes think it is.
I completely agree. And if you think back to the story of the Maccabees and standing up to the Greek-Syrian invasion,
it was the Greek-Syrians who did it?
Yeah. The idea that we still need heroes, we still need what they're calling toxic masculinity.
Oh.
We still need these figures like Ruth, who were willing to stand, and Esther, who were willing to stand up to oppression, right? Who were not afraid of being canceled. Without that, there is no hope.
Well, let's keep lighting the holy oil, Jeff. You and I do it every time we talk. There's a lot of holy oil in both of us. God's blessed both of us with tremendous reserves. And although you're a youngster compared to me, you're still doing pretty good.
Not such a youngster, Michael.
You're doing pretty good for a young guy.
Okay.
Good night.
All right.
Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah to Jeff Rovin. Thanks for being with us.
And a Happy New Year to you and everyone else.
I hope so. I hope it's going to be a great one next year. Thanks, Jeff. Speak to you soon.
Thank you, brother.
Bye now.
Bye.
Well, thank you very much for listening to today's podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it and you'll learn something from it. We have about 400 other episodes available for you to listen to absolutely free. You can go back into our vast library of podcasts and listen to any one of them at any time. And remember this, if you want to listen to my podcast ad-free, sign up for the Savage Premium membership and get access to ad-free podcasts as well as some premium content from our Savage archives. How do you sign up for those ad-free podcasts? Please visit michaelsavage.com for a link. Again, thank you for your listenership. This is Michael Savage.
The Air Traffic Out of Control podcast has landed. Each week you can hear crazy, funny, and downright nerve-wracking audio from airport control towers around the globe.
Well, we're outside here. They're saying the ramp is closed. They won't let us park because of Air Force One.
In Tower 192, there apparently is a passenger opened up an overwing exit and is now on the wing attempting to jump. Can you alert police, please?
Real audio from pilots and air traffic controllers.
You absolutely need to maintain radio silence if it's not ATC related. You're an obstruction to air traffic control. Otherwise, we can file some paperwork.
Air Traffic Out of Control is now available wherever you get your podcasts. Don't miss it.